CNBC TV18.
The All India Power Engineers Federation warned yesterday that 12 states could face acute power shortages, largely due to lower coal stocks. Demand too has risen by 9%, they said, due to the heat wave and the opening up of the economy. But what's the extent of the problem in individual states and how are they going to manage? I have with me Mr. P.K. Das, Additional Chief Secretary Power, Government of Haryana, and Sabyasachi Majumdar, the Senior Vice President and Group Head at ICRA. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me. Mr. Das, I have to start with you. Haryana is named as one of the states which could have power problems because of rising demand and falling coal supplies. What's the situation at the moment? In April, is load shedding more than normal?
We normally don't have a load shedding, but in March and April till now, we have had a very unprecedented heat condition,
yes.
And that we are facing a bit of problem. Compared to last year, we are supplying on an average about 15 to 20% more power, but still we are facing some shortages. That is primarily because one of our own unit, thermal unit, is down because of a rotor problem, and also we have a problem with an IPP regarding supply of power.
Okay. Regarding supplies problem, would this be Mundra related, Mr. Das?
Yes.
Because they are on imported power, and we were given to understand that some of the units are working at as low as 20% because coal is very expensive.
We have a different problem. Some other states have contracted with them entirely for imported coal, whereas 70% of our contracted power with them is domestic. But still we have a problem and we are trying to resolve that through a negotiation.
Okay, negotiation. Will you allow for higher pass-through of the coal price?
This is something on which we are negotiating.
Okay, that's good to hear, sir. That will be extremely positive because I think it is stuck for raw material. That's what we picked up from the power companies. But separately, can you give us some numbers, Mr. Das? What is the extent of power cuts you may be having, and any numbers on coal inventories?
Okay. During this last fortnight, we have been experiencing a maximum demand of about 8,300 megawatts, and the supply situation is about 14.5 crore units per day, and we are only making a cut about 3 to 4%. So the extent of power cuts is not that much if you look at the absolute numbers, but we are not used to making power cuts on our citizens, so that's a point of worry.
It's what, 1%, 2%, 3% on a given day?
Yesterday it was about 4%, but on average it has been about 1.5%.
And coal inventories would be to blame?
No, not because of the coal inventory. We have some short-term power purchases which are kicking in very shortly. I think it will be taken care of, but definitely the supply of coal is an issue. This is the time when, apart from making our daily consumption, we also stock up for the monsoon, because sometimes the coal supply is disrupted if the area is flooded around the coal fields. Somehow that is not happening at the moment, and we have been advised by the Ministry of Power to go for imported coal, and we are making arrangements to go for about 10% of our total requirement from imported coal.
Okay. That's a lot of statements that will lead to further questions. I will come to you in a minute, Mr. Das. Let me get Sabyasachi Majumdar's initial comments. Sabyasachi, what is your sense in terms of which states are facing, what is the average power shortages, especially in the industrialized states?
Okay. So basically on a gross basis, the power shortage is only about 1.5% or so. But it's fairly, unevenly spread throughout the country. So there are certain states, basically most of the states in the southern parts of the country, western and central part of the country, as well as a couple of states in the east, Bihar and Jharkhand, Punjab, Haryana in the north. So it's fairly widespread, but not uniform across the country, but about 10 to 12 states, mostly in south, west and central parts of the country, which have a more critical position. Typically here, the power shortage would be somewhere around 3 to 4%. which on an average would translate into a ballpark 1 hour power cuts or load shedding or whatever you call it in the day. But again, the way, the power cuts are made are, not necessarily even within the same state or within the same DISCOM operating area uniform. So, it can become, different across, different circles within the same state. And what is worrisome is that this time we are also seeing some power cuts to the industrial consumer as well. Because, the industrial consumers are the ones, who provide the profit element to the DISCOMs, which enables them to, make, supplies to the subsidized customers such as domestic or agriculture. And typically in the last couple of years, we have not really been seeing any power cuts to the industrial area. But in the current cycle, we are seeing some power cuts to the industrial consumers.
Quickly, which states are the industrial consumers impacted?
Yes, obviously industrial consumers are impacted.
No, in which states?
So it's across, several states in southern and western parts of the country.
Okay.
Several states, about 7-8 states.
Okay. At the moment, Maharashtra Power Secretary couldn't come because he's in a meeting. Andhra Power Secretary couldn't come. He's in a meeting. I guess it's firefighting in several places. Okay, Mr. Das, to come to you, what is the extent of overdues in Haryana for IPPs and for the state-owned power generators? What are the overdues of the DISCOMs?
We do not have any overdue, neither from the government in the form of subsidy payment, nor payment to the power producers from the distribution company.
Not to either of the IPPs from whom you're buying?
We have some disputes in regard to the claims which are a part of litigation, but otherwise we have been making payments.
Okay. Now, this extent of pass-through that you all are negotiating, will that mean that you will charge the consumer more?
We have not yet agreed on the extent of pass-through.
Yes.
So that is a part of negotiation. I am not free to discuss that at the moment.
Okay. Okay. To what extent, to the extent you can reveal, sir, would it be that you will average it out through the year, or are the pass-through restricted to a certain time period?
It will be difficult to speculate as to what would be the extent of pass-through and how it would be adjusted. But once we decide on a pass-through, if we do, then it would be an averaging out of the cost of power purchase, and then it is applied to all one.
But it will be for a limited period, maybe 1 year or 2 years. Or are you looking at redrawing the PPA itself so that at all times when coal prices go above a level, you will allow a pass-through? What are you contemplating?
The proposal of the IPP is for a complete pass-through for the rest of the PPA period.
Okay.
We are examining as to whether we can accede to that, and if so, what is the implication. So we are as yet in the exploration stage, and therefore it will be difficult to
say more. I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. And this is your suppliers, your IPP suppliers are Adani, Tata, and SR, or because they all have plants at Mundra. So who supplies? Which all supply to you?
Adani and Tata CGPL are supplied from Mundra.
Okay.
We have also China Light and Power located in Gajjar in Haryana.
All right. And by when can we touch base with you for a conclusion? Would you reach a conclusion in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think by the end of this week we should be in a position to make a final negotiation.
Okay, that's very important, sir. Can you tell us beyond this? Will there be, if you reach a negotiation with the IPPs, would Haryana have solved the power shortage for now, or will there still be a niggling problem with the state-owned power generator?
State-owned generators as well as other IPPs who are dependent on domestic coal will continue to face problems because of the overall domestic coal availability.
Okay.
And therefore, we have already started taking steps for importing coal to the extent of 10%. That would help.
Okay. That would be much more expensive, isn't it? How much more would it cost you?
We have tendered to get a price quote on that. But this imported power is coal also is good quality coal in terms of GCB and content. Therefore, it's a trade-off between good quality coal and higher price. It will definitely be a little costlier than power generated through domestic coal.
Okay. No, if you can give us an idea of how much more Haryana's cost would go up and whether you are in a position to pay for it.
You see, the choice is between imposing power cuts and taking costly power.
That's right.
So, Haryana being a state which is dependent on power for both agriculture as well as industry, we do not intend to use power cut as an extensive option.
Okay.
Therefore, we will take the call on imported coal and probably pay a little higher price.
Okay, got that, sir. Sabyasachi, what is the root cause of this 1 to 4% power cuts that you are talking about in the southern states? Is it largely coal supplies?
Okay. So let me try to address this. There has been a very significant, demand offtake this year, and there is also a short-term impact because of the extremely hot weather and other things. Now we need to remember that we have enough capacity, because even with this 10% increase in generation, we are still, operating plants at a PLF of only 67%, whereas historically we have been above 75% also. So there is no capacity issue. There is not even a coal availability issue in the terms of absolute availability of coal. I mean, if you want, you can always get coal from Coal India Limited or from e-auctions, or you can import coal. The basic issue, as I see it, is more of a cash flow related issue.
Sabyasachi, we were told there is a freight issue, that Coal India itself says that they are, while their output has been flat, they are also laden with inventory, and some Coal India sources told us there is a rail freight issue.
So in some pockets there may be a rail freight issue, but even if you have to ignore that, fact is that substantial amount of more coal can be moved to the power plant. So to a great extent, it's also a cash flow issue of the DISCOMs.
Okay.
The DISCOMs are not paying to the generators on time, particularly since they have to make payments to CPSUs under the tripartite mechanism. Many of the state-owned GENCOs as well as IPPs are not getting paid on time, which impacts their ability to pick up coal from either the imports or from Coal India in a timely
Sabyasachi, we're running out of time. Sorry, I'm hurrying you. What is the extent of overdues? We were given to understand that during COVID, when those interest-free loans were given to states, the overdues came down. Can you give us some number? What is the year-on-year rise in overdues or rise over October?
Right now it has again gone up to above 1 lakh crore. I mean, at one point of time it would have come down to somewhere around 50,000-60,000 crores also.
Okay.
But now again it has gone up to more than 1 lakh crore. Again, it's not uniform across the DISCOMs.
Got it.
There will be certain DISCOMs.
And Haryana says they don't have too much of overdues.
Yes, so there are some states, but states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, some Rajasthan, some of these states will have fairly significant dues to the generating.
Just a final question to Mr. Das, and maybe this is not your terrain at all, but nevertheless, are other states, because Mundra supplies to several states in the west, I assume even to Rajasthan and Gujarat, are they also likely to allow a pass-through, or is this only your decision?
We have not taken that call, but I understand Gujarat has taken that call already. I suppose when they start operating the Mundra power stations, Gujarat will be starting to get power on basis of imported coal on a complete pass-through basis.
Okay. That's good to hear. I guess the Tata Power and Adani Power stocks should be happy with what you are saying. And of course, the Haryana consumer as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Das and Sabyasachi, for joining us in this conversation. Very important news coming in from a market angle as well, that coal pass-through prices may be allowed by Haryana fairly quickly. We should hear a decision by the end of the week or next about this coal pass-through, which will mean, better margins and better volumes definitely for the Mundra power plants of Tata Power and Adani. That's a big headline coming in from this discussion, other than the fact that, of course, the country is likely to reel under power cuts. There is also the stock market reeling under bear action. There's some amount of red now in the Nifty Bank as well and across the major indexes. Mid-cap still holding out, but not as well as they did earlier in the morning, but still 2 in the green for 1 in the red. With that, we wrap up on Bazaar. Chartbusters up next.